So, good evening and welcome to the East Mediterranean Forum. Our speaker today is Markus Alexander Templar. He is a writer in Turkish matters and an analyst of Turkish policy. Mr. Templar, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zacharias. I'm honored actually to be here because I enjoy the subject, but also I like your group.
Thank you very much. Mr. Templar, you were very kind to join us in this discussion on Turkey and particularly on the strategic culture of Turkey. What is strategic culture?
Strategic culture is a widely shared normative belief, attitudes, policy, preferences as they pertain to a country's foreign relations. It is, I would say, the psychological personality of a country. And simply offers information that one needs to know in order to understand, in this case, why Turkey as a whole behaves in certain ways and to explain its social personality. That's what it is.
I see.
And we call it strategic because it comes from the top down. They are the ones who determine the education of the people and the policies as they see them based on what the pressures they get from the outside. Okay, the foreign policy of other countries and so on.
What does one look at in order to determine the strategic culture? I think your studies indicate that it's part of, at least for secular Turkey, it's part of the nation building that occurred after the Kemalist takeover, but it goes back in the Ottoman period. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It goes back to the Ottoman period where the Western allies or powers at that time started interfering with the internal affairs of the country. Actually, they were determining, in a way, the foreign policy of the Ottoman Empire, or the Great Ottoman State, as it used to be called. And we go to Küçük Anarca, the victory of the Russians over the Turks, and that's how it started, really, in 1774. And we come to our time, we have the Treaty of San Stefano, for example, which was signed outside of Constantinople. Today, I believe it is the airport, Kemal Atatürk Airport, in that area. So there we see how the Turks actually negotiate on top of it. The deadline was at 6 o'clock p.m., and actually they signed at 6 o'clock p.m. because the Russians had told them, either you do that or we are getting into your capital. That's how. So we go back, and then we have the defeat of Turkey, almost the dismemberment of Turkey after the First World War. All that have contributed to the culture of, I would say, xenophobia. And one can say, well, they are justified. Others say, no, they are not justified. Well, they caused that. So, but the culture goes there.
Yeah. So, what lessons can one draw from Turkish behavior, over time, from the Ottoman to the Kemalist period to neo-Islamist? Now we're in the neo-Ottoman period, I guess.
The Turks, the Turkish culture is a culture of uncertainty, insecurity. They see enemies everywhere around them. One could call him paranoia. I'm not sure. But all this brings them into homogeneity. The Turks are fixated with unity unity of culture, of sameness, I would say. And we see that in the ethnic side of Turkey, but also in the religious side of Turkey, as we see later on Kemalism, what Kemalism is. Because people do misunderstand the whole issue of Kemalism. Then the other thing is, by the way, in Turkey is built upon the very qualities and values that define and sustain mutuality, cooperation, stability, and interconnectedness. In Turkey, everybody has to be the same. If you're not the same, you're outcast. And you see that everywhere. I know cases that Greeks have changed their names, even that, just to find a job. And to me, that's obvious. You know, why should I change my name? I'm a minority, so what? But for them, that's a danger. You're not one of us. Okay. The other thing is insecurity, and because the concept of national security, normally national security is not just military or gendarmerie internally. It's actually it is connected also to economy. Because if you don't have a good economy, you really don't have security, internal security. So it is they reduce that to the physical dimensions only. And that's why they are militarized. That's why they care more about the military they have than they care about anything else. And that could be the downfall of Turkey.
But this was the same in the Ottoman period, wasn't it? I mean, it was an army with a state, not a state with an army, always, wasn't it?
Well, yes. We saw that, but this was this changed with the I would say revolt of the Janissary, and from that point on, Turkey changed, but. I believe it was in 1864, I'm not sure, that time approximately, when Hamid was the Sultan, he tried to modernize Turkey. And he started bringing in understandings, and the way that he understood, the way he could implement everything he saw at the Western area, Western world at that time. And that Westernization started bringing Turkey down, started, I would say, bringing Turkey to its nadir down in 1918, and the Sultan was over. And when Kemal took over, brought back the Turkish understanding of things, although, on the other hand, started to westernize the country in his way, however, within nationalistic fervor.
But there was also the nation building of that time with Gökalp and the poetry and all of that was based in some ways on fiction as well, not just reality.
Gökalp, yes.
Or what in history counts as reality, anyway.
Yeah. Gökalp was a man, he was a Kurd, by the way. That's what is alleged to be. What he did, he took the Shahnameh, an epic poem of the Persians. Have in mind that in the Ottoman Turkey, Persia had great respect among everyone, especially the elite of the Turks, because they took Islam from the Persians. And in the beginning, Turkey was a Shia country. It changed to Sunni later on, when the Sultan saw that most of the Muslim subjects of his were Sunni. So it was a political thing for him. And he changed from Shia to Sunni. But they still maintained the admiration for the Persians. So what Gökalp did, he took the Shahnameh, which was a clear Persian epic poem, and he applied that to the Turks. And he made the Turks to be descendants of the Turanian race, if I can say that like that. And he published this article, this poem actually, in 1911 in Thessaloniki. And from there, everybody thinks that Turks are Turanians. Actually, they are not. Turania is not even in Turkey. It's in the central area. It is north of Iran, but not in the Central Asia as the Turks believe it is. And they took elements from the Mongols also, because the river Ergune, as Gökalp and others have in the myths about the Turks, and the Grey Wolf, all of these things, happened at the east side of Mongolia, which is close to Sakhalin, the island of the peninsula of Russia. Okay? So it makes no sense. Anyway, what Gökalp did actually created a new Turkey.
To interrupt you a second, yes. Are the Alevis in Turkey remnants of the Shia past of Turkey?
That's
or
correct. Not? That's correct. And the Alevis, that's like the Swirling Dervish clan, if I could call it like that, of I believe it is in the area of Konya or Iconium. They are the ones that have brought the philosophical part of Aristotelian philosophy into Islam. So Alevis and the dervishes actually have some Greek into their understanding of the world. And are very spiritual. They don't abide by the rules of Islam. They are much more, they see the religion as a spiritual part and not as a secular part of life. So whatever they take from the Quran is actually, they take the spirit of it, not the letter. And they differ a lot into how you implement the Quran. If the Quran differs from Christianity, that in Christianity you have the Old Testament and the New Testament, and the New Testament supersedes the Old Testament in every time there is a conflict. In the Quran you don't have that, because for the beginning, the way the surahs were given, the chapters were given, do not exist anymore. That series, what goes first, second, and third, was overturned by the Abbasids, I'm not mistaken, or the Umayyads, all the two. And they changed that. They started the Quran for the shortest, which is the Fatiha, to the longest, which is about, in the Quran, 4 or 5 pages. I have a Quran, by the way. I have read it. Yeah. So that's how it goes. There's no chronological basis.
But I interrupted you on, you were saying how the myths of Turkish nationhood affected the strategic culture. I think that's a very interesting issue.
What Gökalp did united the Turks under Islam. What Kemal did united the Turks under the unity of the Turks based on Islam, but in the secular basis. So both men, Gökalp and Kemal, had in mind the union of the country. The basis is different, however. Okay, and in the speech of Kemal Atatürk to the National Assembly, was clear that to him, the Turks and the Kurds were the same thing. There's no ethnicity, individual ethnicity. All of you are the same. You are Turks because you live in Turkey. And there are some ministers at that time who said actually that you are either a Turk or a slave. So that's how they conceive it.
It's interesting, and you mention it in your article, that A lot of the thinking then was that the important thing was education. It wasn't
Yes,
race or ethnicity. It was
that's correct.
education. So if you were educated as a Turk,
You are
you
Turk.
became a Turk.
Yeah, and you have the that started with Kemal again when he said I have it in Turkish here. Ne mutlu Türk'üm diyene. That means how happy is one to say that I'm a Turk.
By the way, that's what's written on the mountain on Cyprus,
Oh, really?
and
See?
faces the Greek side.
Yeah, and another one says a Turk is equal to the world. Okay, and that means that's why I don't know if you have seen it. It says suppose it's attributed to Kemal that if peace at home, peace in the world.
Yeah.
That's connected to this. A Turk is equals to the world. So
But
if you're a Turk, you're the world. Everything else doesn't count.
there's a suggestion, though, that nation building in Turkey is still incomplete. I mean, if you compare Turkey to Iran, for example,
Yes.
which they both have many minorities, a lot of them submerged minorities, ethnic, religious, and so on, the threat, the perceived threat from these minorities seem to be different as far as the state is concerned. In Turkey, this threat is magnified. Therefore, in today's Turkey, you have this brutality towards the Kurds and other minorities, whereas in Iran, on the same Kurdish issue, and I don't know if this is just a diplomatic ploy, but the Iranians don't seem that concerned with the Kurdish issue. Or are they hiding something?
Yeah, in Turkey, however, Turkey was divided in 1918, 19 actually, to many parts. You had the area of Constantinople being international, you had the Greek Ionia, you had the Italian Antakya.
Yes.
So they are afraid of that. And then they had the Treaty of the Serbs and so on, in which Armenia had expanded so far and down. The Kurdistan was almost close to Ankara, all these things. That's how they created it. And this will be the downfall of Turkey. I don't know what you have read from what paper you have read from of mine, but I have written one in 2008, and I explained there that the moment that Turkey becomes democratic, it is going to disappear. It's going to implode. I'm talking about democratic, really, like a Western country, Greece, Germany, doesn't matter. The reason is they cannot suppress the minorities anymore as a democratic country. Just imagine being democratic in Turkey and that the Kurds will take over the National Assembly.
But isn't this the essence of the issue? Because Turkey is has an Oriental culture.
Yes.
Oriental culture, in some ways, is incompatible with Western values.
With democracy, yes,
and
correct.
that is it's the old Samuel Huntington clash of civilizations, for lack of another
Yes.
term, where certain things are divided, and there's a division in the thinking. There's it's difficult to bridge that gap. Now,
Yes.
Turkey seems to be the best example of that situation. At
Yes.
least, even Turkey is split between the western part of Turkey and Anatolia, let's say, the more traditionalist, the more conservative, and so on. But yet, the state is still powerful, and
Yes.
it exhibits and it acts very strongly on the international arena. I mean, is the reality not what we see? Is there something hollow there? Is there? It doesn't seem to be.
It seems to me, especially now with Erdogan, is something like they want the cake and eat it too. Erdogan, if we take it the way it is right now, what he wants to do is he wants to expand Turkism into Europe. And he started actually blackmailing the Western Europe. They want to take from Western Europe what they want to take and reject anything they don't like. At the same time, in order to do that, you have to have people, your people in Western Europe, and anytime you want something, you agitate them. So to Erdogan, all these Muslims in Western Europe are means for future instability as a tool of doing whatever he wants to do.
Well,
and he was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Why is Erdogan's Turkey still pursuing membership in the EU, having in mind Turkey's anti-democratic, anti-European, anti-Western, authoritarian Islamist character? Why is it? Why, or is it still pursuing it?
I would say megalomania. And also, it is, in my view, is the fault of the Western European countries. What they want, you see, the whole mentality is having Turkey now on our side will help us against Russia because of the Straits. They do not realize that the Straits are losing value because we have different weapons today. The ships are larger and heavier. The straits, in the meantime, get shallower, and they render, I don't know, how can I put it? They don't have the value they used to have 100 years ago. But the mentality is that Turkey is important to us. To me, if they want to look for an important power over there, would be Cyprus and Greece, especially with Crete, because they can control the Suez Canal. The other one, the Straits are losing value, and you see Russians slowly take away from there the big ships, and they transfer them to Baltisk, which is the old German Königsberg. Okay? So it is the Europeans who have made a mistake on that. What they do, they see people from Constantinople who are, or the littoral side of Turkey, and they think this is it, that's Turkey. It is not. That's like a facade in a way. And don't forget, many people who are Turkish citizens in Germany especially are actually Kurds. Most of the people in Constantinople are Kurds. And I have the paper on the culture, the strategic culture. A professor did that analysis, taking the telephone books of Constantinople. He saw most of them are Kurds. So the Kurds are the ones who promote Turkey without realizing it. The Turks themselves don't do that.
I mean, there's also an interesting twist to this European relationship, because Erdogan claims the right, in some ways, to speak on behalf of the Muslims in Europe.
Yes.
And this is supported by the fact that there's a number of Turkish religious organizations that are becoming and have become increasingly active in a lot of the European countries with Muslim populations. Now, in your estimation, is this consistent with Turkish strategic culture, or is this a different approach to Europe?
I would say it is part of both. Strategic culture is the one that emanates this, expands it, but also megalomania of Erdogan is something more personal, I would say. But Turks like to be the power of the world. If they could be the power, they would be the power. That's why they expand everywhere they can. Sometimes through cunning, sometimes through extortion, bullying. That's part of the strategic culture. But the minorities, the religious organizations in Western Europe, just like we have here, we have Gulen here, are being used for exactly the blackmail, as I said before. In this way, they can blackmail the Western countries with instability. Now, if Gulen in the United States was part of the whole scheme, Erdogan would not have any problem. But because it is not part of the scheme, for his own reasons, that's why Erdogan has a problem.
What scheme are you talking? The overthrow of Erdogan?
Instability.
Instability. Okay.
Yeah, and instability is the basis, is actually, to me, comes not Turkey to take over Europe, but to regulate European foreign policy toward Islamic countries or toward whatever Turkey doesn't like, doesn't matter what. It's like they want to be the power behind the power.
Yeah.
The movers and the shakers. Yes, ma'am.
We know
you
that,
said something.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
My name is Marta.
Martha.
Yes. We know that the ruling party, the Justice and Development Party, or the AKP party, is rooted in the Islamist movement called Milli Görüş, and that the Milli Görüş movement used to have pretty strong relations, or still has pretty strong relations with the Muslim Brotherhood. So how strong is the influence of Muslim Brotherhood ideology on the party and on Erdogan in particular?
Oh boy. The whole Erdogan system, I mean the people in the government today, not the deep state we have from Kemal, but from Erdogan's side, started with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And they are connected with Hamas and many of the Palestinians. Not only all the Palestinians are pro-Hamas, not really. But I do not take Hamas as part of Palestine, of the Palestinian Authority. To me, Hamas is independent because must have in mind that the area of Gaza was under Egyptian rule, not under Jordanian rule. So the mentality is different. Actually, I still wonder what kind of dialect the Hamas, the Gaza people speak today, the Egyptian dialect or the Palestinian dialect. And believe me, there are great differences. Okay? So all this, the Turks fall into, follow the Hamas mentality, the Muslim Brotherhood mentality. They are part of them. Okay? Have I answered your question or not?
Looking at Syria and Iraq and so
Syria.
on, Turkey seems to have irredentist and revisionist intentions, not only against Greece, but to the east and to its south. Again, is this a reawakening of Turkish or this, we call it neo-Ottoman, but I'm not sure it's correct term. Is it coming back in touch with the mainstream of, in your terms, Turkish strategic culture? Is Turkish strategic culture pushing the state now more visibly than it was before.
In a sense, yes, they do. They want to, again, to them it's not important if the borders change or not, as far as they're concerned. It is important what kind of effective control they can have on other countries. They want to be the movers and the shakers of the area. Okay? Now come to Syria. I have written a letter to my representative here in the United States, the Congress, and I told her at that time, and that was in 2013, about 6 months before ISIS came about. In 2003, I was talking to a very high-ranking officer of the United States Army, and I told him at that time, we were talking about Iraq because we were ready to invade Iraq. And I told him at that time, do not destabilize. I dare the day that Syria is going to be destabilized. Do not destabilize Syria. There are many ways of getting rid of Assad. Because Assad is not exactly a regime I love, personally. I don't. Because I have worked on that. But Syria is a microcosm of ethnic and religious groups. And to me, even Lebanon is part of Syria. Okay? And my ancestor grandparents come from Hatay area, which was part of Syria. Until the 1939, the French passed it into Turkey. So I know Syria. Syria should not be destabilized. You want to get rid of Assad, there are many other ways of doing it. Do not destabilize Syria, especially when we know Turkey, I would say we knew that time, Turkey was itching to get into Syria and was threatening Assad. And know this because Syria has a lot of Alawis. Now, Alevis and Alawis are not the same. But they're very close to each other, because they come from the same root, Ali, the cousin and brother and son-in-law of Muhammad. So those Alawis are Shia. And the same thing happens in Lebanon with the Hezbollah. They are Shia. And the Shia are more, I would say, more spiritual than the Sunnis. The fundamentalist Muslims are the Sunnis, not the Shia. Never mind what's going on in Iran. That's another story. But Syria should never be destabilized. And then you have, and that's why Russia came in, because Russia wants to have the control of the Middle East, and they lost it. The moment Egypt went to the western side, Russia lost. Not only they lost the control, but also lost the client to sell weapons. And the only client they have now is Syria in the area. And they will never lose that client. Also, it gives them a base in Latakia and Tarsus.
It's interesting that you mentioned Russia, because I think Turkey and Russia, from the time of the Ottomans, they always had not a love-hate relationship, mostly a hate relationship, but with slight, shines of love too, because there was some admiration, let's say, certainly on the part of the Turks towards the Russians. Admiration in terms of their might and their ability and their military capabilities. We see a little bit of that, I think, with Erdogan and Putin now. But at the end of the day, again, the strategic culture of Turkey and the strategic culture of Russia, in your estimation, do they dovetail or are they at loggerheads?
I would say to a point to a point. They are similar to a point. Russians are very proud people. Okay, I have read a paper, I don't have it there available, about the strategic culture of Russia. And I was really surprised of the things I have read. It was written by a group of Russians, academics, all of them. But my understanding would be that they come in conflict with each other because they are the same or similar to a point, okay? And I believe that the Turks and the Russians come in conflict in Syria mostly because Russia, on one hand, wants to eliminate the strength, the power of Turkey, and they support the Kurds for that. And the Kurds are supported by the Americans too. Okay? But also they don't want to lose the client and the base they have in Latakia. It's also a matter of prestige. Okay?
But the Kurds, again, are it's an interesting issue because as far as the Turks are concerned, the Kurds are the biggest threat to Turkish territorial integrity and sovereignty and so on. Now, to what extent the U.S. and the West is supporting the Kurds, again, that's the jury is out because there seems to be a little bit of double talk there or double action, let's say.
That's Turkey in action.
The Russians, again, although when they started getting involved in the Syrian issue, it was a little bit, their objectives seemed a little bit more clear cut. Now they're sort of muddling the waters as well. What are they supporting? They supporting certain Turkish claims or certain Turkish objectives, or are they not? It's what's your sort of take?
Okay.
You must have a clearer take than we do.
Turkey started feeling the danger of dismemberment or losing territories to the Kurds after the Kurds declared their area through the Constitution of Iraq as an autonomous territory. Autonomy is the first step to independence, the way I see it, especially when the Kurds are not Arabs. The Kurds are Indo-Europeans like the Iranians, the Persians. So the moment the Turks saw that the Kurds are now autonomous, they understand that this is going to spread into Turkey because now the Kurds have a state. And because of the territories in the Diyarbakir, that area down there, are, I would say, not 100%, but very close to it, Kurdish. There is a homogeneity in that area by the Kurds. And the Turks see that and they're afraid of that. At the same time, you have Kurds who live in Syria who until 2010, I believe, they were not recognized they ever existed there. A Kurd from Syria could not get a passport, not even a birth certificate, because the Arabs of Syria, the governments in the 50s said that these people came from Turkey illegally during the war, passed illegally to Syria, and they're not Syrians, although they were born within Syria. So if I had to redraw the map, I would take all the Kurdish territories into the new state of Kurdistan, plus the area of Syria that is inhabited by the Yazidis, by the Kurds, all these people, I would say east of Euphrates. And I believe that's where the fighting is going on over there. The Kurds go out west of Euphrates and the Kurds are the east of Euphrates. And that's what the conflict is. But I believe now is different because the Turks feel that the Kurds actually are a power in the area. They fight, even women fight. And they have the support of the United States and Russia too. The only thing Russians don't want is for Syria to lose territories because it's a matter of prestige for the Russians, not for the Kurds and the Turks. So that's what's going on, in my opinion. There's a conflict over there because of what happened in 2004 with the new constitution of Iraq and so on. Yeah.
But in the maritime area also, I mean, as I think we mentioned before, that over the last 20 years, Turkey has built this very large, very strong navy in the Eastern Mediterranean, in the Mediterranean. In some ways more than defensive, because it has offensive capabilities and it therefore again Turkey hasn't had a large navy that large since the 1600s, when it got defeated by Atlepanto. What is this? It's a moving towards its destiny, its national destiny in the region. What are you looking for?
It has to do a lot with Erdogan. Don't forget, he was prime minister for so long before he became president, and also with the Islamists that are taking over in a way, the government of Turkey in a slow pace. They want to show that Kemal was good, but we are better. So in a few years, about 4 years from now, 2020, they're going to have the 100th anniversary of Kemalist of the Republic of Turkey, with Kemal #1, the one who made Turkey the way it is. So now they want to surpass that mentality and push for Islam. We are the ones who did it. We were better than the secularists. At the same time, it goes back. They want to go back to the Ottoman glory, as they see it. The difference is that today the world is different.
You mean that if there was not this move towards Islamism in Turkey, you wouldn't have this expansionist dreams, or this increasing their regional power? Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
More or less, yes. More or less, yes.
So it's secular Turkey, if Turkey goes back to secularism, it will stay within its borders?
Now that I can't tell you, because once you see something good, you keep it. It depends how they see it.
Once you've seen Paris, you never go back to the Nebraska or something. Is that what it is?
Well, yeah. Never mind what they say. You know, you deal with politicians. And personally, I don't trust any politician, but that's my view. This is the issue here. They want to go back to the Ottoman Empire in order to show off the flag. You know, we are here, and we are the ones who will do everything that we want. And you are still a slave because you are not a Turk. I was talking to an Arab. I have some Arab friends. At that time, I was studying Turkish in California, and there's a nice restaurant owned by 3 brothers, all from the village of Hosan of Jordan. And I have a friend from Hosan. He studied dentistry in Thessaloniki. And that's how we met and started talking to them. And one of them said, "I hate the Turks." And I said to him, "Why?" You know, to me, you know, in general, now these brothers are Christians, but the mentality was the same. I hate the Turks. Why? Because when they were our rulers, did not allow us to study in Arabic. So anywhere and everywhere the Turks went, they were forcing people to study Turkish and to become somebody within the Turkish milieu. And they want to go back to that. Again, we go to the strategic culture. You see what you did to us 100 years ago? You want to destroy us and all this? I'll show you now. Okay? Because now we are united. We are one. And the moment you start understanding this mentality, it's like a revenge, in a way.
I would like to go back to the question of fundamentalism, because you mentioned that the religious fundamentalism is much more often to be found within the Sunni Islam and not the Shia Islam. Is this the reason why Turkey supports ISIS, or if it doesn't support it overtly because it has never admitted that it does, it is not fighting it fiercely enough? Is this the reason? Is there some sort of ideological similarity between the?
It seems that the Turks take ISIS as their tool. What they thought they can do is use them to do whatever they're doing, and then because we are strong now, we can go and subdue them. That's how. So they are using ISIS for anything they want. That's for their minds anyway, to do whatever they want. Because in reality, I mean, I know I can. I don't want to go far into the Islamic understanding of mind because I have read the Quran. There are many things I don't even say from the Quran. They take whatever, they pick and choose anything they like, but that's another story. They use the ISIS fundamentalism, if I can call it like that, more as a tool, thinking that let them do whatever they want now, destroy everything Western, show to the world what the Islam is all about, and we do it in the name of Allah. But when it comes to, and they supported them, they did support them. The MIT of Turkey actually was shipping equipment to them, and it is recorded by journalists that have left Turkey since because they would not be alive. Yes, they wanted to use as a tools, and they used them, thinking that after the whole thing finishes and they do what they want to do, they had the caliphate, then we can take over, because they depend on us now anyway. We don't give them the equipment. We don't allow the recruits to come to go to Syria through Turkey. We have them. Let them do whatever they do, and then we control them.
But that means that they don't want to destroy them.
No.
Because they're useful.
Because the ISIS want to have the caliphate, and Erdogan want to be a caliph. So you do our dirty work.
But irrespective of the caliphate, ISIS would be useful for Turkey anyway.
To the Turks, that's correct. Because they destroyed the Kurds, the enemies. They destroy the Christians down there. They get rid of Assad. At least that's what their minds. Okay? And we can manipulate them. So it's it's something attributed to Lenin, and I don't know if that's true or not because I haven't found anywhere. But at least a Russian wrote that Lenin has said, these are the useful idiots for the Turks.
So, in other words, what you're saying is that once the caliphate is established and Erdogan becomes a caliph, what he counts on is that ISIS is going to pledge allegiance to him? Is this what you're trying to say?
No, they will force them to. They will force them to pledge allegiance.
Right.
Because they have the power. And with the ships, all this navy they do, is exactly to establish themselves as the power, not only in Eastern Mediterranean, but also in the whole Mediterranean. and everywhere they used to be, like Yemen.
What are we to expect from a post-Erdogan Turkish regime?
A lot of this would depend on a number of factors. Russia, United States, EU. For as long as EU is not a unified military power and a unified political power, Turks would do anything they like. Germany has a lot to do with it. The Germans used to be the friends of the Turks. And I have heard, I'm not the specialist at genocides, but from what I have said, I have read, the Germans actually are the ones behind the genocide of the Greeks and the Armenians and so on. And then they implemented that on the Jews in during 1934 to 35 or 34, whatever, well, 44. So, and they had to be unified. And for as long as Germany does not support Cyprus, Greece, all these countries of the European Union that are close to Turkey, and they do anything possible on their side to exert, I would say, effective control over these countries, directly or indirectly, like in Greece with the money issue. Turkey sees that as an opportunity to expand. So the European Union will have to start putting their foot down. And anytime Erdogan tries to blackmail them or direct blackmails them about the sending millions of refugees or whatever, they could stop him in a different manner. I remember I was talking to a politician from Greece, and he said to me, it's not that we do not see the refugees coming in, it's not we cannot stop them coming in, but we have signed so many treaties with the European Union that does allow us to stop them. So again, we go to the European Union and how they understand the whole issue. You see, my parents on both sides were refugees to Greece, but they went to a country that was Orthodox Christian, as they were. Or even if they were not Orthodox, they were Christians. Here you have refugees who come from another country, and when they come to your country, they demand that you adopt their culture instead of them adopting yours. Are not of the same religion, and again they demand to have not rights but privileges. You cannot do that.
Yeah. But coming back to how Europe can affect a post-Erdogan Turkish regime or the shape of it, because I think you were developing a line of thought there, which I think is interesting.
How can they? Well, in the first place, they had to be united. They are not. It seems to me that northern countries like Sweden and Finland and all this do not understand the difference. Now,
but
the
do
Finns,
you mean that they should challenge Erdogan? They should call his bluff. They should put him in his place.
Bluff.
I mean, what is the suggested policy?
Okay, the European Union does not, in my view, defend the borders of the European Union. On one hand, they say they are political union. Actually, they are not. If we put the standards down of political union, they are not political union. They are just a union of customs and commercial union, I would say. So far, they have not shown any unity as a unified Europe, as a country, because they don't even have constitution. Personally, I don't think European Union is going to stay union for a long time. That's another story. They have conflicts among themselves that go back to centuries.
Sure.
And so it's not like the United States or Mexico different
Yeah.
thing. They could defend the borders of Europe,
But
and they refused to do it.
there's an additional factor. Post-Brexit Britain, the suggestion is that it will come closer to Turkey because now they're both on the periphery of Europe. They have more common interests, and that this would, at least in the short run, encourage Erdogan and encourage Erdogan's policies, and enable him to hand on in a post-Erdogan regime, to hand on some of his philosophical and practical and other heritage.
I would say yes and no. I don't think so, but I cannot tell you. That would depend also on the foreign policy of the United States, because Britain is one of the four eyes, as we call them. The four eyes meaning United States, UK, Australia, and Canada. And British foreign policy and American foreign policy go hand to hand in many cases, especially Europe. But don't forget also we have Germany there. The U.S. and Germany are very
but
close.
One thing would
I'm
be
not sure.
British attitude towards Russia, because the Europeans are a little bit timid towards taking a really hard position towards Russia, whereas now with Britain outside the European Union, it could go back to its traditional anti-Russian kind of policy in the Eastern Mediterranean I'm talking about. Because that is surely the challenge. Can the West accept a permanent presence of Russia in the Eastern Mediterranean? That question has been plaguing everybody for centuries.
Well,
so, and there is where, I don't know if you agree, one of the sources of Erdogan's power.
At the end, I think the West will have to accept the presence of Russia in Syria. You cannot have. I don't believe they want to have a conflict with the Russians over Syria. And if the Russians still in Syria, they could be players in the area. As for Turkey, I doubt. Turkey, there's a difference between what Turkish elite wants and what Turkey can do. Okay? Yes, they can spend all the money they want to have a strong navy, but there's the issue there, how good the navy is going to be. Okay? They would have to have many friends in the Mediterranean in order to have the ships in. To my knowledge, the only thing they have now is Albania in Adriatic. And if Albania now is part of NATO, yes, okay, they have something in common in a way. However, when Albania gets in the European Union, things change.
Yeah.
Okay? We saw what happens with Bulgaria. Turkey and Bulgaria, kind of, they were in friendly terms, and today the Turks don't do anything with Bulgaria because they know behind Bulgaria is not just NATO, also Russia. So it's like I don't have a crystal ball here, but I don't believe Turkey will go and the UK will go that far together because there's a conflict of interest. Anytime Turkey gets stronger, the UK loses. In Cyprus, for example, they have two bases, Akrotiri and Dekelia, and I don't believe they are willing to risk that. So we'll see. I don't know how it's going to go.
Just not to tire you much longer, but a final sort of question. do you see a powerful, dominant Turkey being a paragon of peace and stability in the region, or something else?
Well, it depends how you take it. It could be part of stability, as I believe Davutoglu had said that we want to have peace in the region and all this, under whose terms? Okay? If Turkey is the controlling power in the area and imposes itself on others, is it going to be a piece of stability, a part of stability? It's going to be a stable area. However, the fact would be that under Turkish effective control of the area, the other countries would be like slaves in a way. And no country today would accept that. Sorry.
Sure.
No country would accept anything like that. Okay? On the other hand, if you see it from the view of the countries that would be around Turkey, like Greece, Cyprus, Egypt, or even Malta, Turkey would be part of instability. And to me, they are part of instability because of the way I see they act with Greece. For example, or Cyprus, they go to the Aegean Sea, they say, oh, well, that's our sea now, we split it. Or half and all stuff like that. And for us, the problem in international law, I'm sure you know that, is if you allow somebody to do something once, you allow them for the rest of their period. So yeah, people in those areas have to understand you cannot say, well, it's only once. It doesn't matter, that's nothing. No, it is something. Also, in politics, the fundamental truth is a perception. You don't want to give a perception to anyone that you are going to accept this reality that Turks want to impose on you. I don't know, that's how I see it. To me, Turkey is instability. Yes, ma'am.
Very, very last question from my side. Looking at the past and at the present, is there any chance that Turkey will ever develop into a Western-style, stable, liberal democracy?
Liberal? What do you mean by liberal now? Because we have a difference in liberalism. European liberal means on the right side, right wing, and American liberal is on the left wing. The American or the European liberal?
Where the rights of the minorities are respected, where there is equality, equality of genders. I mean, I think
you're talking about a regular democracy, like you and I understand
democracy, exactly, Western style.
Okay. As I said in the beginning, I believe that the moment Turkey becomes democratic, Turkey is over. It is going to implode from within. It's going to collapse. Because all these minorities now, you will see them coming out. And you have religious minorities that today nobody sees. I have heard people saying about crypto-Christians coming out. The Alawis will be free to do whatever they want. Now they're a little bit, secluded a little bit. The Kurds, the Armenians, whatever Greeks you have, it also depends what you consider a Greek. You consider Greek a Greek Orthodox, for example, or even the minorities, the Greek minority, Greek-speaking minority in the Pontus area who are actually Muslims. So all these people are going to come out. And at the end, you will have a Turkey. So I personally, my wish is to see a democratic Turkey, a real democratic Turkey. But the moment that happens, I don't see Turkey surviving.
Very interesting.
So Templar, thank you very much for your time and your insights and sharing them with us. And we hope to continue this discussion.
I hope some people will listen to them.